All right, now we're going to continue on with the cam, which the book listed as project 4.2, but we're drawing them in the same file. We're going to keep them together. So we're going to start by drawing a couple of concentric circles, and then we're going to use polar arrays to create a lot of this. So let me move my over a little bit. Put me back on the visible layer, and let's go circle diameter. And I want this thing at absolute value 14,11, right? Yep. 6-inch diameter. Okay. And now I hit my space bar to go back into the circle command again. I could type that same absolute value, or I could just go to my center object snap. And I'm looking and see, now this is asking for the radius of the circle, because when you just automatically enter the circle command, it defaults to radius. So I'm going to hit D on the keyboard for diameter, because I need the second diameter to be 5.33. Okay. And now we want a center mark. So let's change our layer over. And choose that. Okay. Now while we're here, let's make the same changes to this center mark properties that we did in the other one. Cross size will be 0.12, gap 0.06, and line type center. Okay, so that looks good. And I'm going to post a video after this one, before you get into the, after the architectural project, on how to edit your center mark settings. So you can see how those are settings, and you won't have to make a change for every drawing. Okay, so next step is to put a 2-inch diameter circle over on the right side. So let's change our layer back to visible. We'll go circle diameter. We'll go there, and that's going to be a 2-inch diameter circle. Okay, next we'll do a polar array of that circle. So I'll select it, go polar array. It's asking for the center point, so I'll go there. And we have 6 objects at 360 degrees. So that's all good. I'm going to turn off associative, so because I'm going to be editing these things. There's no need to change to rotate. It's a circle, it doesn't matter if you rotate or not. So that's all good. So I'm going to close the array. And let's see, we got to erase the larger circle and then trim all the other stuff. So this one we can delete. Now we can start our trim command. And you're just gonna have to go through and click them all. There we go. Then we can exit out of that. Then we want to put a smaller circle in the middle, and just to keep things clean visibly, I'm going to go put it on my center layer. And so that gets a diameter of 2.67. Let's change back to my visible layer, and we'll go with a circle of 0.325. Okay, so that's got my circle for the slot. Let's turn on ortho mode and draw a couple of vertical lines where, and in case you're wondering, it's not the intersection of the circle and the circle, it's the quadrant. So if you don't have, let's go to your object snaps, turn on quadrant right there. And we want to pick from that quadrant. And we're just, you don't have to stop. You're not getting a snap there. So I'm just going to go outside. That's fine. We'll do it again over on the right. And just make it a little long so you're not getting any snaps there. And now we'll do another polar array of the circle. And to honestly, I'll tell you what, to make it easier in the long run, I'm going to trim first. So I'm going to trim that arc and then trim those outside lines. I'll still have to trim the other because you can't array a trim. So let's go with polar array. Pick the two lines and the arc. Okay, the center point will be there, and we're going with 6 again. Don't turn it, make sure associative is turned off, and that's good. So close the array, and then we'll trim trim the slots. Okay, and in this particular drawing, we're going to delete that circle there. There is a way to create a centerline pattern, and we'll cover that later in the class, but for now we're going to delete that one. Then we need to add the boss or the hub, and then the keyway. So we've got another circle of diameter 1.67 and a 1. So we'll go 1.67. Do it again. The diameter of 1. Okay, now then, keyways. Let me. I'm looking at the dimensioning on it. It's not showing me anything. Okay, so the book is telling you to draw a rectangle. And part of the problem with keyways is keyways are measured from the outside edge where it crosses the circle, or where the axle would go through. And I'll be honest with you, well, let me just show you. I'm going to pop over and draw on the, since we don't have a construction layer in this drawing, I'm going to switch over to the 0 layer, and I want to draw a line. I'm just going to draw it from there down to the center, and that gives me a construction line. Now my keyway slot is 0.25 of an inch wide, so I'm going to do an offset of 0.125, and I'm going to offset that white line to the left and to the right. That gives me the width of my slot, and it also gives me where the slot begins on the edge here. So now let's switch back over to my visible layer, and I'll start my line command, and I've got ortho mode on, so I'm good with that. So I'm going to start at this intersection, and make sure your snap is taking you in the up, and I want to go up 0.15 inch. I'm going to go to the right 0.25, and then I want to go down 0.15. Okay, now then these white lines that I drew, I can, in this case, in this drawing, I'm just going to delete them. If I had a construction layer, that they were on, I could just turn that construction layer off. Now let's trim the inside of that, and we'll leave that center line, the center mark for the overall object. Now we want to go over to paper space. Well, we'll save it first. How about that? We'll save our file. And now let's go to our layout tab. And we can actually turn off that model space layer. Okay. And honestly, let's see, is it set? Yeah, model space is set to not print. Okay. So if we were to actually print this, it wouldn't show up anyway. Now, when we're using paper space layouts to set up drawings for printing, which you will do on pretty much every drawing, first of all, we want to set our scale. So this beige-looking box around the front is what's known as a viewport, and a viewport is like it's like a window in the paper where you can see through the paper into model space. Okay, and this is where we set the scale of it. Now you may have to adjust the scale, you may not. Every drawing will be a little bit different. But when you select that viewport, you look down here in the lower right corner. This tells you your viewport scale, and right now we're at a 1 to 2, and the viewport is locked. If I needed to change that viewport scale, or I needed to, pan the drawing to center it up in the paper, I would have to unlock this. Most of your templates are going to be set up with the correct scale and the correct visuals, but you may have to change that. So you would unlock it. Now you can change the scale, and I recommend you always use one of the preset scales. So a 1 to 1 is way too big. 1 to 4 is way too small. So we'll just bring it back to a 1 to 2. Okay, now if I needed to center this up, I have to activate model space. And I do that by coming here, I click on the paper button, and that switches me to model space. And you see how the viewport rectangle is now bold? That means it's active, and you're actually working through the window in model space. And now notice how my cursor changes when I move over. So I've got my drawing cursor over here now, and I can pan or I can zoom. Okay. Most of these you should be set up so that there's not any changes that you need to make. Except for you may have to adjust the scale on some of these drawings. Now, having said these things, you always want to make sure your viewport is locked so that you can't accidentally make any changes. Now let's go down here to our title block. These things are already filled in for you, so you just have to select one and you want to edit it. Now if you double click, if you're not careful, you'll activate model space and you'll see that viewport bolden, and so now you're not editing your actual text, you're editing your drawing. And so now you want to fill in this information. So I turn on cap locks because pretty much everything we do in drafting, we use all capital letters. So I go Geoquick, select that one. This is a 1 to 2. You'll put in today's date, and what have I got? I've got 7/17. 2025. Put your name in here. Come in here and you notice that particular text box is set up so that it totally fills with your text. Okay, course number is going to be DFTG 2010, and this is sheet 1 of 1. And that's all of those things to be done. Okay, that's looking good. Now, let's take a look at our stuff here. Because we're at a half-size drawing, the scale is, 1 to 2. Let's see how, since we don't have hidden lines, it's not affecting it that much. But let's look at our line type scale. And the way to measure that, we would start drawing a line to see how long our dashes are. So I'm going to come over here and go line, and just with my cursor, kind of line it up on the edge of that cross and go to the right. And so that tells me it's like 0.06 long, when it should be 0.12. So let's go LT scale. If we change that to 2, what happens? Oh, I forgot. It doesn't affect the center marks. If we had a hidden line, it would affect the hidden line. If we had center lines drawn as regular lines, it would affect that. What can we do? I'll tell you what, let's edit our center layer here and change our line type. And let's load the center 2x, or x2, and see how it looks. So I changed my center line default to the center x2. Don't think that didn't make any difference. So, because it's all in the properties. Okay. Let me just double check my line type scale. Let's set it at 1, so we're not messing anything up. Yeah, we would have to. Yeah, this is just not fun. This is a problem with the these type of things. So let's select all of them. And the problem is, I tell you what, let's just leave it. We'll just leave it the way it is, and we'll deal with it when we get to some of our other drawings. Okay, so this is how your drawing should look like. We'll just go with the center lines the way they are. Fill in your title block. Okay. Make sure you've saved your file as with your last name in that, and then that's what you're going to submit in Blackboard. And if you've got problems or questions, you're going to have to reach out to the instructors or the lab tutors to come in and get some help from them. Okay.